to Ocala and Marion County to make this the best community possible.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 24 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. This Sunday is Easter, and I don't know about you, but I, for some reason, as we always get closer to Easter, I just really think about the Christ story a lot. I think about it at Christmas, too, but I think Easter, for some reason, it's a little bit deeper for me. I don't know why. One of the things I was thinking, too, is the Vatican is located in Rome. And at one time, Rome was like notorious for being anti-Christian, and now it's like the heart of Christianity. Some people could argue that, I guess, but that's where the Pope is, and
Yeah.
you know, I guess Catholicism is probably one of the biggest denominations of Christianity. Am I right? I don't know.
Yes, I think so. It is.
Our next guest is Richard L. Black. He's on the phone. It says here he's a devout follower of Jesus Christ. He worked as an institutional stock trader on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center. My goodness. He works with a major software corporation closely associated with the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. He's a researcher, a guitarist. How did that mix? How did that fit in there?
I just think that's wonderful.
And his book,
I love guitars.
His book is outstanding. It is called Maximus, and you'll see why I was thinking of Rome when we get Richard to tell us about the story. This is described as an innovative rendering of the story of Christ through the eyes of an outsider. Richard Black. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Larry.
Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
And where are you right now?
I decided to take this call from home as opposed to going into work and finding a quiet place.
And where's home?
I live in Utah.
Oh, in Utah. All right. Well, that's a great place to be. It seems like there's a lot of Christianity in Utah. I guess the whole country.
Correct.
It's a dumb thing to say, wasn't it? But anyway, thank you for being on the air with us. When the subtitle says "through the eyes of an outsider," what does that mean?
Well, you talked about Rome. At this time of the story, Rome was relatively ignorant of Christianity, as was the rest of the world. And so I think the story gives a unique perspective of someone who had no idea what this movement was.
Do you know, I was watching this video on YouTube, I guess, and it was a tour of the Colosseum in Rome. I've never been there myself, but the lady giving the tour was explaining how the sports that were conducted in the Colosseum were done, and without actually coming out and saying so, you knew what she was saying, that's where they would pull the Christians out, and it wasn't just lions. Apparently, they had lots of different kind of animals that would basically just kill these Christians as entertainment for the masses.
It was an ugly time of persecution, that's for sure. Absolutely. Not one that any culture should be proud of.
You have Maximus and Androcles being friends, so Maximus was a real person?
Well, he's my fictional character. He is he is a general. Androcles is his commander. They come back from a bloody campaign. Maximus has been asking himself questions about, he's questioning Roman imperialism. He's questioning the gods, and he talks about this with his friend Androcles, who takes kind of a no stance with his friend and says, "Hey, just keep it quiet because you're talking sedition here. You're talking treason with some of your thoughts." And so when they come back from this bloody campaign, they are given the opportunity to go to Israel at the invitation of Pontius Pilate and by assignment of Emperor Tiberius to investigate this possible threat to local Roman rule. Pilate thinks that Christ, this Jesus of Nazareth, may be raising a quiet army and potentially as a threat to Israel and the Roman state there in Israel. So they're sent undercover to investigate this and give a a third-party perspective of what's really happening. So they leave everything Roman behind. They grow beards. They put on Jewish clothing. They travel with a mentor by the name of Ezra, who is a ex-member of the Sanhedrin, and he teaches them about the Hebrew people, the Hebrew history on this voyage. And so when they arrive in Israel, they're somewhat prepared for what they're going to meet and see. However, totally unprepared for the changes, or at least Maximus, that the changes that are going to beset his life in the next 2 or 3 months.
Wow, so he's like a spy. But he at what point in Jesus' ministry does he connect with them?
The last part, I leave it kind of open-ended. It's really probably the last 3 months, the last 4 months, and of course the last few chapters of the book deal with the crucifixion. And at this point, Maximus and Androcles are advisors. They are sent as advisors to Pontius Pilate, and so they witness the trial. And so it's from their perspective. They get to see Roman imperialism from the other side of the fence, and they're not real happy with it. They see the ugly side of Roman imperialism, and of course, Maximus, by his position, is the highest authority in Jerusalem at the time, even over Pilate, because he's a legate, he's a senator. However, he doesn't invoke his power. He lets things play out and tries to advise Pilate, and obviously we know how the story ends. But it's a very unique perspective how he chides not only the Jewish rule and the Sanhedrin and the elders, but he chides Rome as well.
So what exactly changes his life? Is it the philosophy of Jesus? I'm guessing it's not supernatural. I'm guessing it is just plain simply understanding the teachings.
Well, yeah, he has an encounter. I conscientiously did not have him have any conversations with the apostles or Jesus. They just view it, they just see it, and they observe. And his conversion, if you will, spoiler alert, is one of from the heart, from the soul. Many people saw the miracles who were never converted, who never believed. I mean, members of the Sanhedrin saw some of the miracles, and they were never converted. That's not how conversion comes. In fact, even after Christ's death, many of the disciples fell away. They weren't truly converted or committed. He has a different experience, and in the book, we tell the story of how that happens, the things in his life, the things that he. Of course, he was open to this message. He wanted change. He was searching out God, and searching for a higher meaning in his life. So he was very open and willing to hear this message, and it hit him. It hit him right in the spot in his soul and his heart where he was able to commit to this.
Wow, I love what you're saying, and I want to tell you something. This is kind of an aside from the focus of the book, but I've often, in talking to people who say, I don't believe in Jesus, I will often ask, what exactly don't you believe? I mean, of the things Jesus taught, if John Lennon had said them, you'd believe them. If any other pop culture person had said them, you would. Why wouldn't you believe them? And when I say that, they all say, well, I guess that's true. We shouldn't hurt each other. We should love each other. But I think it's the same. What you're describing in your story is almost the same thing that's happening in the world right now. I mean, we're once again taking Christ in a non-physical form, and we're dragging him through the streets, ready to crucify him. And people who know him are saying, why? What is it about this guy that you don't like? And of course, Christ is in the form now of Christians who are being beheaded, etc., in this world.
You make a very interesting and valid point, and it's no easier to be a disciple today than it was back then. There were a lot of messages. Of course, they didn't have the social media. Their social media was by speaking and by message, written message, and yet there were those political factions. There were those arguments. There were those people trying to hold on to power in Jerusalem that were trying to demean his message and lessen his message, and that's the real message of Maximus. Here's a man in the prime of his life. He's 30 years old. He's basically a peer to Jesus of Nazareth, and he has everything to look forward to in his own society. Yet he walks away from it because he realizes things aren't right. I'm looking for. I need something else.
Right.
My heart, my
That's
gut
wonderful.
is telling me there's something else that I need, and he finds it. And each of our personal missions, spiritual missions, if you will, is different, and we arrive there through different roads, but it can't be done by a miracle. It can't be done by something we see. It has to be something that we feel very, very deeply, that we've sought after, and we humble ourselves to receive.
Well, it is by divine intervention that you are on our show, the first guest after a pimp. Because I'm feeling cleansed now a little bit.
We have a very
He was fun.
show.
He was fun. I was a little bit uncomfortable. So we'll take a little break and be right back. This is I love this book. Richard L. Black wrote the book. It's called Maximus. It's a novel, and we'll continue our conversation when we return.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Some sunshine today, but there may be a shower or thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. The high 80 to 84. Clear to partly cloudy tonight. Low 60 inland, 65 along the coast. Good Friday will be warm with a good deal of sunshine. The high 81 on the coast, 87 inland. For Saturday, partly sunny and warm with a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon. The high 81 at the coast, 87 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Whether you're building it up or knocking it down, get it done, rent it now. Sunbelt Rentals is here to make your job a little easier. Our knowledgeable staff will help you find the right equipment for any job, big or small. Did you know that Sunbelt Rentals carries heaters, air conditioners, generators, lighting, traffic control, and so much more? So whether you're building it up or knocking it down, we've got the equipment you need. Get it done, rent it now. And right now, for a limited time, you can have it for less. Just by mentioning this ad, if you rent it Friday afternoon, you can keep it the whole weekend and only pay for one day. And this is a limited time offer, so stop into Sunbelt Rentals today, Northwest 27th, just a quarter mile east of I-75. For more information, just give us a call, 352-369-9101. 352-369-9101. Sunbelt Rentals. Get it done, rent it now. 352-369-9101.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
That's why some psychologists recommend putting arguments on hold until the morning when we have more control over our emotions. Social interaction, especially with people who mentally challenge you, boosts your cognitive function. So take a few brainiacs out for dinner, even if you have to pick up the tab. The good news, scientists say most of the bacteria in beards is no more harmful than bacteria on our skin, but to stay safe, keep the beards clean, please.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Right on the southwestern corner of the square sits one of the finest dining establishments in Florida, Mark's Prime Steakhouse and Seafood Restaurant. Mark's offers big city dining amenities in a charming and small town setting. It's a rare treat to experience both the ambiance and the exquisite cuisine in a friendly atmosphere. Ocala's finest restaurant serves the finest beef, the freshest seafood, premium wines, and naturally fresh vegetables. From valet parking to splendid service, Mark's offers the complete package. Check it out today. Mark's Prime Seafood and Steakhouse Restaurant.
All right, 20 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Richard L. Black is on the phone. His book is called Maximus. It's a novel, but he definitely is telling the story of Jesus through a different perspective. And Richard, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, well, I'll tell you about and then ask you about, there was a piece that was a trending piece about the Titanic movie, the movie Titanic, that said if the Titanic movie was true, and if Rose had jumped into the water and hadn't been saved by Jack, then the Titanic would have never hit the iceberg because the Titanic would have stopped to try to find where the girl went, right?
Interesting.
So why that has to do with your book is in the story. There's understanding that there's going to be an arrest made on false pretenses of Jesus. There's going to be an execution made. So your characters know kind of behind the scenes what's going to happen. And I guess it wasn't a secret anyway for anybody.
No.
At least it looked. But knowing what he knows, now he's not a time traveler, but he knows what he knows, and he's a skilled warrior. So he could literally have stopped it.
It's interesting you should bring that up, because I do have that conversation, that self-conversation. Maximus, he turns to Androcles a couple of times in the book and says, we've got to stop this. We've got to see this through. Androcles says, no, our mission is done. We've determined he's not a threat. Let's just go back to Rome. Let's just get out of here. And Maximus says, no, I've got to see this through. And he thinks about, I should just grab him on my horse and just say, hey, listen, I'm a Roman general. Let's get out of here because they're going to kill you. But something compels him to not intervene. The mentor Ezra says, I don't understand why he comes back to Jerusalem and subjects himself to this persecution and to this trial. I don't get it, but there must be a reason. And I think Maximus kind of realizes that too. There's something beyond his own authority, his own personal will that is at work here that he can't step in front of and stop. Yet he does have that conversation, and he wants to end it. He wants to stop it.
Yeah.
In fact, is even in a position of authority to be able to do it, but he doesn't, because something inside of him is compelling him not to.
There was a very interesting question that you had written in the book for the character, why would a Jewish God listen to a Roman masquerading as a Jew? I mean, that really says volumes.
Well, it does, and he's talking to Ezra, the ex-member of the Sanhedrin, and he's asking him, he's very curious about God, and so they talk about God, and he says, so is this the God? Is this the one I'm looking for? And Ezra says, you're going to have to find that out for yourself. He gives him the quintessential answer. You've got to discover that for yourself. And why do you think, he said, the Jews are kind of selfish. We think Jehovah is just our God. But he says, I understand that Jehovah is everybody's God. He's your God too. And he says, he's going to bless you because you're a good man. You've treated your parents well. You've treated your men well in the field. Why wouldn't this God, bless you too? You think that because you're a Roman and you're a warrior and you think this is a Jewish God. I'm telling you, he's not a Jewish God. He's everyone's God.
Is he there to witness the resurrection?
No, the book ends at the crucifixion. I've had a lot of people question me about the ending. In fact, when my wife read the ending, she said, well, that's kind of abrupt. And I said, a book ends when it ends. And the real question is, does the story, quote unquote, the story end at the crucifixion, or does it just begin? And really, the story as we know it, and how this plays into Easter, is the story just begins at the crucifixion. People have asked me if there's a book 2. Well, it kind of depends on how book, that Maximus does. I've taken notes, but there certainly is 1,000 questions, and this Roman, going back as a disciple of Christ now, has a world of challenges ahead of him, and a lot of storylines could be taken from that.
Do you know what's interesting is we speak to authors all the time who say that the characters write themselves. In this particular book, that might have happened for you. That's kind of one of the first questions in this question. But the other part is that you had to stay true to the historical aspect of this, or the biblical aspect, as it probably is a more accurate way to say that. Did that present any challenges that an author who has complete carte blanche, I mean, you can just create the whole scene and everything, but in your case, the scene has to stay the same, but the acting, or the actors, or the characters, rather, are the ones that you have control over?
You're right. It's a very interesting point you make, because if you don't like doing research, you probably shouldn't write historical fiction. I did this to do some research. I really didn't do it to write a book, but writing the book was a way for me to do research on this time and on Christ, and I learned so much. Let me address one question: the characters. Ezra is my favorite character, and he is a character that really was going to kind of just be in the first third of the book and then kind of fritter away, if you will. But he really began to talk to me, and he became kind of a golden thread through the entire book and became much bigger of a character than I ever thought he would. He kind of said, hey, I need to be here, I need to be there, they need to come, they need to ask me this, I need to tell them this. So he becomes not only the mentor for Maximus and Androcles, but he becomes the mentor and teacher for the reader, who may not understand some of the things that I understand because I went to Sunday school all my life. I'm hoping that this reaches across the aisle, and a lot of non-Christians or Christians of different brands read this, and it's taken from the New Testament. There is truly just the stories from the New Testament, and how this person would view them.
Right. We are all looking at Jesus as outsiders. It's just that we can't walk on the same soil at the same time as him. So in a way, this is a great way for us to see Jesus the way we should be seeing him. Tell me about yourself. It's one of the questions. I don't think Rob and I have asked one question that was provided to us, but there is one question I wanted to ask you about. It says, "What led you to pursue writing at this stage in your life?" That implies that you're not a young man.
No, I actually. Thank you. I actually became eligible for Social Security this year, and so no, I'm not a young man, and I don't think I could have written this story with the passion and knowledge that I wrote it in my 20s, 30s, or 40s. I'm 62. I've got a large family. I celebrate my 40th wedding anniversary in August. I've got some different experience in the workplace, and so it's kind of come to a place in my life where I've got some passion, I've got some knowledge, I'm armed and dangerous, and I have the ability to get it down on paper. I kind of discovered a gift, I guess, for writing. I was blessed with the great teachers in junior high and high school that made me read and write critically. I graduated with a degree in investment finance. But went back to school to take went back to college to take a creative writing class to kind of validate whether or not I really had a talent or I was just kind of blowing smoke, And I validated with the teacher in the class that, I do have a talent. It needs some development. Yeah. Well, 40 years later, 35 years later, I finally penned a book, and validated that. It's a rookie book. It's my debut novel. There's mistakes in there. I apologize to the reader, but I think it's a good yarn. Even the critical reviews that I've gotten about point of view, or head hopping, or some of the things that people say I did wrong, or maybe got a historical fact wrong. They say they like the story, and isn't that really the important part?
That's pretty important.
They enjoyed the story.
So were you? Richard, were you working at the World Trade Center when it was attacked?
No, I worked there. I was actually working out of L.A. My headquarters was at World Trade, 104th floor. When I worked there, I visited and worked there many, many times. That was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I have since changed careers a couple of times since then, but so no.
Okay, we have a copy of Maximus, so let me give it away. If you call me right now, you can have it. The rest of us have to go buy it. We've got 1 minute to get that information out. Richard, do you have a website we can go to?
Yes, richardlblack.com, and it talks about the book, talks about me a little bit, talks about some of the events that I'll be attending, book signings, etc., interviews. We will post I see that you post YouTube interviews.
Yes, we do.
And so we'll be posting that as soon as it's available.
And that'll be by 2 o'clock this afternoon if anybody wants to share it. And thank you for being on the air with us. All Christians don't celebrate Easter, do you?
Absolutely, we do at our family. It's a very important holiday for us.
Okay,
it should be for all of us.
Well, then have a great Easter. Thank you for being on the air. I love your book, and I hope there is a sequel. I don't know how you could write a sequel to this, though, but you're a talented writer, so you'll come up with something else, maybe. Something.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Great interview. All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Lillian Wu. The founder of the Crystal Cathedral megachurch has died, according to his daughter.
Dr. Robert H. Schuller started preaching in 1955 at a drive-in theater near Disneyland, which he rented for $10 a week. It was years before he began his TV ministry called The Hour of Power in 1970.
I'd rather attempt to do something great and fail than attempt to do nothing and succeed.
Schuler was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 2013 and was in poor health for several months.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. Schuler was 88. New details coming out on the Germanwings crash into the French Alps. Officials announcing a second black box has been found. Also, German prosecutors who took possession of the co-pilot's tablet computer from his apartment, saying he appears to have researched suicide methods and cockpit door security in the days before the crash last week. Fox News. We report, you decide.
I'm Lex Friedman. I run my own business, so I know from experience, hiring new employees can be tough. Posting your job in